Okay, stream is live. Everything's working. I'm going to wait for one person to show up to start my blurb for today. But if you're watching this retrospectively, hi, my name's Rachel. I'm an archaeologist, and I'm the owner of the Inside Archaeology YouTube channel. Yes, I am in an hoodie. My second bedroom is very chilly at the moment, so I thought I'd be warm for this. My love for archaeology was partially inspired by playing this game that we're about to play as a child. And so what I'm doing basically is I'm playing through all the levels in this game while also talking about the real life locations and time periods that they are set in, and how the game kind of differs and is the same as real life. And then we're basically working our way through Egypt's history. Usually we play for maybe like an hour or two, and then if you make it to the end, you get redirected to the premiere of my latest video. So today, it's the video that's premiering is the January 2024 edition of Archaeology News, which is my monthly show talking about discoveries and news stories in the archaeological world. It's got some really exciting stuff in it this month because we're talking about the garden cities in the Amazon, and I have an interview with the archaeologist who found them that I did over Zoom, so that's really cool. There's a Maya jade burial mask found in Guatemala. There's a Roman dodecahedron found in England, and I also was contacted by one of the people I've previously interviewed on the channel, Will, who filmed a nice little segment for us talking about some field work that he's been doing in Peru, which I think is quite cool. So, yeah, concurrent viewers. I don't know if something's happening to my live stream because it doesn't say that there's anybody watching. I don't know. I'm gonna just refresh and see if that hopefully doesn't break it. Analytics. Oh, it says that I have 2 viewers, apparently. So yeah, it looks like, oh, it's because it's the concurrent viewers is broken. Ah, okay, it's just because the menu went up or down. So sorry. Anyway, how everything's going to work today is I finished the last mission, which was Dunkel Oasis, and we're going to now be proceeding into the Middle Kingdom. I think we're going to get a cool little like graphic, and then I did a poll on the channel about which level we're playing next. Everybody chose Waset. So we're gonna choose that mission, listen to the mission briefing, have a look at the map, and start the level. And I've got some pre-recorded segments to cover some of the topics that we're gonna see here today that I will play for you. And while I play the game, and then we can always talk in the chat if you guys have any further questions about anything. Always happy to answer questions. If you guys ever have any, feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to say hi in the chat and whatever, that's fine too. Just try and keep things respectful. That's all I kind of ask. If you've not watched my previous streams, there's probably going to be a lot of context in those about some concepts that we might have already covered. Those are in the Archaeologist Plays playlist. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you know whenever I put out new videos or do a stream. And yeah, every subscribe really helps me out. I am almost at 7,000 subscribers. So if you guys can help me get over that in the next few days, that would be a really nice present for my weekend. So yeah, all right. Last time, like I said, we defended Dunkel Oasis from the Kushites and the Bedouin armies. As the Old Kingdom collapsed, we were pretty much the family duking it out, probably as a nomarch, trying to keep our people safe. And tonight we're moving ahead about 100-ish years, and we're going to Waset, where we're going to be doing some rebuilding as we reestablish sovereignty and we go into the Middle Kingdom period. So the segments we're doing for today are going to be on the first intermediate period, the 11th dynasty, Waset, which is our level, and then the god Amun, who is like the main god in Waset and who really needs to be mentioned, even though the game ignores him completely. So, okay, that's enough of me talking. Let's get into the game. So, as we can see, we get to now move into the Middle Kingdom.
The pharaohs of our forefathers conquered this great plain and built the great pyramids and the Sphinx.
Oh no! Oh no, I skipped it. Crap. Goodness. Oops. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to do that. It clicked away and then it came back. We'll see if we can redo it.
Osiris has turned his back on the people, and a series of low inundations has caused widespread famine. The power of the pharaohs, once unquestionable, has evaporated, replaced by bickering provincial leaders. Out of this chaos, two noble families have arisen and are attempting to seize control of the country. The rulers of Henenesu have laid claim to the throne as the rightful heirs. They are particularly cruel and are doing little to assuage the people's hunger. To the south, a new family, the Inyotef house, has risen to power in Wast. The family has done much to reunite the south, and now the rulers of Henenesu have engaged the rulers of Wast in a deadly civil war for control of all of Egypt. The Inyotefs, busy fighting the Henenesu rulers, have entrusted you with building up their home city of Wast. If the Inyotefs are to succeed in their fight against the Henenesu rulers and solidify their reputation in Egypt, Wast must be a touchstone on which other cities rely, providing succor or soldiers to those that request aid. Wast, which could be the capital should the Inyotefs reign victorious, must be a great city. Using the scarce resources available to you, build a sun temple and pyramid to show Egyptians the glory of the Inyotefs. Wast itself is not immune to attack. The Henenesu rulers and those loyal to them may threaten your city from time to time, and Henenesu may try to extort demons from your city's treasury. To defend against these considerable risks, build a strong army and navy to defend your city and to come to the defense of other threatened cities.
All right, so I'm gonna save, and then I'm going to see if I can just like load so we can get that Middle Kingdom thing, little cutscenes. Just give me 2 seconds. Also, I'm saying Waset and this guy's saying Wast. There's clearly some pronunciation problems here. Oops. History. Okay, well this is the end of my last mission. Let's see, 63. So we'll just see if we'll spend like just a few minutes doing this, and then we'll see if I can. Kingdom rating has risen 72. I'm gonna cheat and send a gift to the Pharaoh. That makes him, ooh, not as happy as I would have liked. 78. Oh, come on. That is so ridiculous. The fact that I have to wait so long to... Okay. Send a gift. Nope. Alright. And my kingdom rating needs to be at 80. So, I'm just going to take a few minutes to do this. Sorry guys, I really didn't mean to cut away from that cutscene, and I really want to watch it, so that's why we're just taking a slight detour at the moment. Just trying to make some jobs for everyone so that I don't end up with revolts out of the middle of nowhere. 78, send a gift. I think I have to wait a little bit longer. Hey, I flew over your town the other week. Oh, Edinburgh. Where were you going? Oh, now I'm gonna lose people. Oh, this is such a... so annoying! Give to city. Maybe if I give all my money... Nope, that's not doing anything. Back home, USA. From Austria. Oh, were you visiting Vienna? I've actually never been able to visit Vienna, and I would love to go there. Hi from Florida. I would seem that there's a large difference in the populations between the kingdoms. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get an idea because, ironically, the Egyptians didn't count necessarily people when they did their census. They actually counted livestock, which is also how they did tax, because they had a barter society. But definitely, I think there would have been a population dip between the Old and the Middle Kingdom because, as we've talked about before, historically, it seems like there was like a bunch of climate change going on at the time, which then, and it was like a desertification, like it was a period where the Nile basically wasn't flooding, which then meant that people didn't have enough food, and there was a lot of starvation and stuff going on. So, oh no, I've got people just leaving in droves. This is not good. Send a gift. I don't have any, like, I don't know what else to call them, but like unemployment suck, like industries in this one. Usually if you're on the Nile, you can have a work camp, which makes your life a lot easier because then you can just make a bunch of these camps, which take up all your unemployed people, and then you don't have people leaving the city because they don't have enough jobs. And I've got, oh no, this is just turning into a... I've just been on the town. It was like, yeah, Vienna I think is supposed to be pretty scenic. 7 month, there we go. Okay, maybe that's taken my... Alright, I'm gonna spend at max just a few more minutes on this before we go back to the other city, because yeah, this is annoying. Yeah, I don't care about that so much. My archers and my army will take care of this for me. Alright, 83. So basically the population needs to have a bit of a rebound now. Let's see if that happens. Pretty decent. Okay. I have lots of jobs. What are these people talking about? Just, oh, this is so irritating. School. I've got immigrate. My employee thing is like below 10%. I'll just do a bunch of police stations. This is like really not my best looking city that I've ever made. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not too happy about the fact that this looks not the greatest, but I can't. Alright. Kingdom rating has risen. There's a 4%. Alright, now we've got people coming in. So, let's see what this does for my population. 85, 3,300. 3,400. Oh, come on. Don't tease me. Guys, we're 50 people away from this. Maybe I should just... Ooh, should I cheat and just put down a bunch of houses? No, I've got all these people coming now. all this for a cutscene. What? Yes, okay. Yes, I don't care. We're gonna begin the... Okay.
The pharaohs of our forefathers conquered this great plain and built the great pyramids and the Sphinx and the sacred tombs of countless nobles which sprawl across the desert as far as the eye can see. Here is a testament to the ways of old, to the glory that was Egypt, the glory that was Pharaoh. Yet though our monuments endure, the strength that built them does no longer. Osiris has abandoned us. The power of Pharaoh has evaporated like drops of water in the desert. Our enemies dare to challenge his sovereignty and raise sword and spear against us. And Egypt crumbles into dust.
See, this cutscene now makes more sense with the mission briefing that we did, but we're just going to skip right ahead to this. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. Let's have a look at our map. So we've got gold veins. That's good. That means I can generate my own money. We've got two types of farm that we're allowed, two different types of harvest, I guess. A nice big area here. Got an island in the middle. This bit off the side is pretty much worthless. There's not really much to do with that. I suspect this island down the bottom here, this is going to have to be my like naval base. Because I'm definitely probably going to get invaded. And I obviously can only make or grow crops on one side of the map, which is, again, kind of annoying. Oh, I've got fish too, so that's good. That means that I can have a populace over here that's fed mostly on fish. So that makes my life a slightly bit easier. G'day from Australia. Oh, hello. Elena. Oh, hi, Elena. Yes, I remember you. Yeah, Australia. Fun place. I have never been myself. Yeah, I love the cutscenes. That's why I just spent 15 minutes that I should have been playing this game doing a cutscene, doing things so that I would still be able to do a cutscene, but you know what, it's fine. All right, let's start. I'll start my town over here. Okay. We'll have this happening here, and I think I'll end up having alrighty. So, I'm gonna start setting up my town, and getting things going here. Yeah, well, being an archaeologist is great. I know exactly why that's something that you would want to do. I suppose I would still call myself one. I don't work in archaeology anymore. But it is a really amazing profession that I very much love to do. So my channel is all about helping people have the tools that they need to become archaeologists if they so wish. So you can check out basically all the videos on my channel. I've got quite a few of them, and they will give you more of an idea of how you can potentially achieve that dream. I wish you the best of luck in it. We've got 3 gods for this level as well. We've got Osiris, Ra, and Bast, which, as we'll find out a little bit later, is not historically correct for this city, because the main god worshipped here was a guy called Amun or Amun, however you think the best way to say that is. All right, I'm going to launch into our first segment for today, which is all about the first intermediate period, which is really what they're covering when they're doing the mission briefing for this period. They're not really talking about the Middle Kingdom. They're talking about the first intermediate period. So, okay, I'm gonna turn my mic off and play the first segment for you guys.
First segment, we're going to be talking about the first intermediate period. In the game, this mission starts in 2015 BCE in the Middle Kingdom, but looking at the briefing, it seems to me like it actually is meant to take place at the end of the first intermediate period, a term first coined in 1926 to describe the kind of transition between the Old and the Middle Kingdom. Historically, this period lasted around 125 years from around 2181 to 2055 BCE. It comprises the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and part of the 11th dynasties. Very little monumental evidence survives from this period, as it was a dynamic time in which rule of Egypt was roughly equally divided between two competing power bases / kingdoms in the north and south. The northern power base was at Heracleopolis, which is called Henen-Nesau in the game near the Nile Delta. Don't think I'm saying that right. And the other power base was at Thebes / Waset in the south. It is believed that during this period, temples were pillaged and violated, artwork was vandalized, and the statues of kings were broken and destroyed as a result of the postulated political chaos. This could have also potentially been when the pyramids were originally robbed of their treasures. The 7th and 8th dynasties are often overlooked because very little is known about them. The 7th is actually believed to even be mythological, so there doesn't really seem to be any proof that it existed. Manetho describes 70 kings who ruled for 70 days during this time, which is almost certainly an exaggeration meant to describe the disorganization of the kingship at this time. The 7th dynasty may have been an oligarchy comprising powerful officials of the 6th dynasty who attempted to retain control of the country. Both the 7th and 8th dynasties are said to have ruled from Mennefer, also known by its Greek name of Memphis, in the north. A few artifacts have been found, including scarabs that have been attributed to King Neferkara II of the 7th dynasty, as well as a green jasper cylinder of Syrian influence, which has been credited to the 8th dynasty. Also, a small pyramid believed to have been constructed by King Ibi of the 8th dynasty has been identified at Saqqara. Sometime after the 7th and 8th dynasty kings, a group of rulers arose in Heracleopolis, which became what we now know as the 9th and 10th dynasties, each with 19 listed rulers. The Heracleopolitan kings are thought to have overwhelmed the weak rulers of Memphis to create the 9th and then 10th dynasty, but there is virtually no archaeological evidence that supports this theory. The founder of the 9th dynasty, Aktoi, is often described as an evil and violent ruler, most notably by Manetho. He was described as a king who caused much harm to the inhabitants of Egypt, was seized with madness, and eventually killed by a crocodile. Around this time, a distinguished line of nomarchs arose in Siut, a powerful and wealthy province in the south of the Heracleopolitan kingdom. These warrior princes maintained a close relationship with the kings of the northern Heracleopolitan household, and as evidenced by the inscriptions in their tombs. These inscriptions provide a glimpse at the political situation that was present during their reigns. They describe the Siut nomarchs digging canals, reducing taxation, reaping rich harvests, raising cattle herds, and maintaining an army and fleet. The Siut province acted as a buffer state between the northern and southern rulers, and the Siut princes would bear the brunt of attacks from the kings of Waset. The 11th dynasty was based in the south at Waset, also known as Thebes, and these kings are believed to have been the descendants of a man called Intef, the nomarch of Waset, who is often called the keeper of the door to the south. He is credited for organizing Upper Egypt into an independent ruling body in the south, although he himself did not appear to have tried to claim the title of king. However, his successors would later do so for him. One of them, Intef II, begins the assault on the north, particularly at Abydos. By around 2060 BCE, Intef II had defeated the governor of Nekhen, allowing further expansion south toward Elephantine. His successor, Intef III, completed the conquest of Abydos, moving into Middle Egypt against the northern kings. The first three kings of the 11th dynasty, who are all named Intef, were, therefore, also the last three kings of the first intermediate period, and would be succeeded by a line of kings who were all called Mentuhotep. Mentuhotep II would eventually defeat the northern kings around 2033 BCE and unify the country to continue the 11th dynasty, bringing Egypt into the Middle Kingdom. The division of Egypt into what was essentially two kingdoms in the north and south is reflected in the art and architecture that survives from this time. The northern kings, although they were weak in power, held on to the artistic traditions that had been in place throughout the Old Kingdom. On the other hand, the southern kings, physically isolated from Mennefer and its center of art, were forced to develop their own pre-unification Theban style of art, as it's now known. These kings then used their art to reinforce the legitimacy of their rule, and many royal workshops were created, forming a distinctive Upper Egyptian style of art different from the Old Kingdom canon. Reliefs from the pre-unification Theban style of art consist primarily of either high, raised relief or deep sunk relief with incised details. Figures are depicted with narrow shoulders, a high small of the back, with rounded limbs and a lack of musculature in males. Males were sometimes also shown with rolls of fat. Facial features characteristic of this style include a large eye, which is outlined with a band of relief meant to represent eye paint. The band meets the outer eye corner and then usually runs back towards the ear. The eyebrow above the eye is mostly flat and does not mimic the shape of the eyelid. A deep incision is used to create the broad nose, and the ear is both large and oblique. The building projects of the kings in the north were very limited. Only one pyramid believed to belong to King Meri Ka-Ra is mentioned to be somewhere at Saqqara. Private tombs were built during this time, pale in comparison to the Old Kingdom monuments in both quality and size. There are still relief scenes of servants making provisions for the deceased, as well as the traditional offering scenes which mirror those of the Old Kingdom tombs from Mennefer. However, they were of a lower quality and much simpler than their Old Kingdom parallels. Wooden rectangular coffins were still being used, but their decorations became more elaborate during the rule of the Heracleopolitan kings. New coffin texts were painted on the interiors, providing spells and maps for the deceased to use in the afterlife. Artworks that survive from the Theban period in Waset show that the artisans took on new interpretations of traditional scenes. They employed the use of bright colors in their paintings and changed and distorted the proportions of the human figure. This distinctive style was especially evident in the rectangular slab stelae found in the tombs at Naga el-Dir. In terms of royal architecture, the kings from Waset of the early 11th dynasty constructed rock-cut tombs called Saf tombs at El Tarif on the west bank of the Nile. This new style of mortuary architecture consisted of a large courtyard with a rock-cut colonnade at the far wall. Rooms were carved into the walls facing the central courtyard where the deceased were buried, allowing for multiple people to be buried in one tomb. The undecorated burial chambers may have been due to the lack of skilled artists in the southern kingdom.
Okay, so that was our introduction to the first intermediate period, which we are currently playing in. JT Lewis, what video were we watching? What are you talking about? The intro to the level. That was what I went back to play with and was trying to watch. If you go farther back in the stream, you'll be able to watch the cutscene. So as you can see, I've kind of made myself here 3 kind of satellite settlements, I guess you could say, that I'm hoping to use, well, basically for all my stuff. I've also built a city palace here to try and to get my gold so I can build up my treasury a little bit. Okay, yeah, you joined. Yeah, you can watch it later. You could watch it now if you really wanted to. Yeah, so I'm just trying to build up my treasury and kind of get things off the ground here. Oops, need a firehouse and an architect's post. It's killing all my fisheries, guys. Not cool, man. Roadblocks here too. Ah! Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. They're on the water. Why are they on fire? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, so I've got myself kind of 3 industries started. I've got my... and I think I need to start... I think I still have a high unemployment. We'll have a check at that in a sec. So I need to start some industries for my building projects because I have to do a sun temple and a pyramid. Oof. Let's see. A small pyramid. That's all going to happen over here because it's as close to the things as to the where I'm going to get my stone from as possible. So I've got a small pyramid started here, which I'm going to need stone for. So let's do plain stone. Well, oops. Do 2 plain stones, 3 plain stones, and then 2 limestones. Actually, do it this way. And also, let's do a roadblock here and here, because we don't really need those. Yeah. And we'll connect you here, roadblock it there, and then we can do our work camps here, which will contribute workers. And let's do some physicians because I don't want people, all of a sudden my population's going to take a nosedive because they haven't provided enough doctor's offices. Classic. More stone roads common. I don't, do you mean like were they everywhere? Probably not. I would say that the majority of their roads probably would have been dirt packed except for, again, these like kind of processional ways or bits that they invested more time and money into. They're not like the Romans. They don't pave everything. As far as I'm aware. It's entirely possible I could be wrong, but yeah. Oh, I need storage yards. Well, I guess I'll just put these here then. And we'll have to limit the... There we go. We'll put firehouse, architect's post here as well. All right, and that's very nicely taken up most of my extra workforce. So I'll let that pyramid just go along. It's nice and small. It's not going to take me very long to do, so that's fine. I think I'll also need to see. Look again. First intermediate period. My farms here aren't doing so well. It's not great. I'm so happy that there's so many people in the stream and that you're all talking in the chat, because the last couple streams that I've done, Vaverka and Vi have been carrying the chat for me. So I appreciate you guys engaging a little bit with the chat. That's really nice. Currency, yeah. I mean, just general health, safety is another, personal safety. I don't know how much you guys engage with historical YouTube outside of my channel, but basically there's a guy called Pre-Modernist, and I think he's a history professor. He's kept himself anonymous, so he doesn't publish his name, like he publishes his image, but he did this amazing video on YouTube maybe like a month or two ago, back in 2023, where he talked about what it would be like to, like, realistically how to prepare if you were to time travel back in time to the medieval times, and like what kind of things do you need to think about, like what language should you speak, or you know, like how should you, what should your cover story be, like that kind of stuff. Like, how do you go about this without like arousing like suspicion, or like getting yourself robbed or burned as a witch, or etc., etc. And it was absolutely like fascinating to hear him talk about. Like, highly recommend that video. It was just, I found it incredibly interesting, and a really great perspective on that stuff, which is not something that I think gets talked about a lot. Like, it's, yeah, it was really cool. I wish I had the resource. Maybe that's something I can do in future, like a video or something about, like, you know, how should you go about time traveling to ancient Egypt, basically. You know, to be honest, if I had to pick, ancient Egypt probably would be my time travel period of choice if I had it, because for one thing, at least in my impression, like women in general had a lot more like rights and freedoms than throughout a lot of the rest of history. So obviously for me that would be a lot easier. Yeah, maybe he will. Maybe he'll write a historic fiction book of that genre. But the video itself is absolutely fascinating. Is very much from like a men's perspective, but I think generally, if you're a woman traveling back in medieval times, correct me if I'm wrong, you just basically shouldn't be doing it by yourself, because if you're there by yourself, like, women didn't generally travel, and they weren't really considered people. I guess that's the only way I can really put that. They would have been considered property of their male relatives, whether by marriage or by blood. So yeah, I think one of the number one tips is, if you go back in time and you're time travel as a man. That's all this straw. Okay. Have a look. So we need culture, not enough musicians, don't care about that. Monuments, Kingdom 45. This is all stuff that's very feasible. Icon painting, Greek Orthodox Church. Yeah, I mean, I just find Greek culture, well, ancient Egyptian culture, many ancient cultures in general, not just Egypt, I just find them very fascinating in general. All right. Well, maybe I should start trading. Maybe if I did that, things would pick up a bit. And I'm gonna put in some nice gardens so that my houses will maybe evolve. That'll be good for my prosperity. And we're also going to adjust this road so that I can put these two away, and I'm going to put in a bandstand so that I can have more entertainment here. People will be happy about that. All right, let's have a look at our map. So this does correspond historically with where Waset is. Thenis only buys copper, it sells beer. Mennefer, trade route, they sell pottery. So the thing I need is beer. I know that Thenis sells it, but it'd be great. It looks like nobody's going to sell me barley, so I'm going to have to buy beer from the start. And only Dunkel Oasis sells sandstone, as far as I can do. We'll do a land trade route for that, and we'll start building up some sandstone eventually. What can I sell? Clay, pottery, beer, papyrus, and bricks. I think that's going to be my route to... Oh, great. I have to... Okay. Well, I'm not going to send them stuff because that'll make me look weak. But that also means that I'm going to have to prep for this. So let's do a bazaar. And we'll do a recruiter. They're going to invade from this side if they come by land. I don't know if they'll come by land or sea. But we'll basically... We'll do this, and we'll do an academy, and we'll do a firehouse, and an architect's post, and then I'll start off with some archers. Here, I'm also going to need to import wood, so I can build ships. So let's see if I can buy wood yet. I can. Okay, import 3, 2. I'm going to stick with 100 because it is expensive. I'd love a high production value series that shows from A to Z the best idea modern archaeology has for production of basic items. How Egyptians made bronze weapons. Yeah, that would be a really cool. That would be a really cool series. I agree with you. Can get 2 warship wharfs off the bat here, and actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this. Haha. Yeah, I'd really like to, I mean, I think probably the best idea for doing something like that would be recreating the pyramids thing. Like, there's been lots of, or even just more programs about experimental archaeology, because experimental archaeology is something that happens a lot, but it's still somehow like a bit of a fringe thing, like, but I feel like is really one of those things that archaeologists need, is like that connection to make between, you know, people who are quote unquote skeptics and they just don't really understand how these things were done because they just, like, they're not a stone worker or a metal worker. So like in their mind, they think it's impossible. So I think that, you know, more stuff to do with experimental archaeology would definitely, I think, help combat some of like the pseudo archaeology claims that go around a lot. But yeah, I feel like a lot of things are dry. A lot of it's, look at this cool, this came from here with that info. Yeah, I definitely, there has been like a specific type of how these documentaries tend to be made, which is obviously it's prioritized for a TV audience and they're just basing it upon, you know, models which have worked for them for a very long time. But that's kind of why I started doing these streams like this, because people like games. I think it's interesting to, you know, watch this, especially as the game, more so in the beginning, not so much as much now, but when you had like all the new bits that you're discovering, and then you're talking about them as, like I said, as like we go along, which I think is really cool. But so like that's why, yeah, that's why partly I like doing these, is I play the game, which I'm half good at doing. And then I also get a chance to kind of talk to people and teach them about Egypt, which I hope I do in an engaging way. Let me know if you disagree and you think I'm doing a really bad job of it. I am open to people suggesting improvements. All I ask is that you do it in a way that's constructive and not incredibly mean, because I'm still a person, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like when people are really rude to me on my channel, I do not respond well to the criticism. So, you know, there's nothing like making someone not do what you're telling them to do than to tell them that they're stupid while you're telling them what to do. It's just my opinion. Okay. Have I seen a guy who moves massive blocks by himself with just wood and rope? No, I haven't, but I've seen quite a few videos about like people splitting rock with just like a chisel. Like not needing like giant machines or something like that. I think it's really interesting that people think that like rock can only be split using, I don't know, like a rock chainsaw or like modern power tools or something like that, when actually it's probably more efficient to do it the way that we've been doing it for millennia. Okay, this says that I can buy copper somewhere, but I literally don't know where. So these people sell, okay, I'm gonna have to concentrate on this. Thanks, Matt. I'm glad you like the archaeology news videos. JT, did I never get back to you? I'm really sorry. I've been so busy. So busy lately, and I have so much stuff coming up. I'm going to put it in my calendar now to get in touch with you about this, and I will email you tomorrow. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't have a lot of brain capacity at the moment. I've got a lot going on. Email JT. I think you, JT, can you confirm that you sent me your stuff on Instagram or something like that? Can you just remind me where you sent me your information, and I will email you tomorrow. Guy named Wallet has a lot of videos on YouTube that shows how to move massive stones. Very interesting. Okay, I need to take 2 seconds to figure out where I can get copper from. So Dakla sells bricks and wood. Dunkel sells gems, rock stuff. Don't need that. Can't sell from Kerma. Necken's not an option. Thinis sells pottery and beer. Knum sells linen and bricks. Sorry, plainstone. Mennefer sells. Where can I get copper? Which trade route? I don't know which trade route I can get this from. Oh, to export, not for import. Okay. So that probably does mean that basically this is all going to be naval battles and not this is going to be all naval battles and not armies. So I'm just going to build up my navy. Busy time for me too. On Instagram. Okay. Mention pseudo-archaeology. Yeah. I mean, I don't... Like, I mentioned pseudo-archaeology not because I actually find it personally interesting. Personally, I find it incredibly reductive and boring. But unfortunately, that is what the algorithm rewards. So if you pay attention to like anything to do with with the algorithm, basically, you will notice that there are a lot of history and archaeology YouTubers who are popular, and who rake in the views. Ancient Aliens and Pseudo Archaeology forms a lot of their content, and talking about these sites that pseudo archaeologists like to, ask questions about. That's just like that. That just ends up being so much of the content, because that's what sparks a lot of debate, and so that is ultimately what the algorithm ends up rewarding and pointing people towards, because obviously algorithms on social media sites are designed to capture your attention and then keep your attention for as long as possible. So people arguing in the comment section of a YouTube video, algorithm doesn't care as long as you're engaging with the YouTube video. They don't care if it's right or if it's wrong. So that's my thing. Like, I kind of mentioned the pseudo, so I don't like making lots of videos about pseudo archaeology because I feel like it's been done and I don't really want to just like endlessly repeat myself, especially for people who are just never going to believe me anyway. But that's why I've started weaving in mention of it more into a lot of my like scripts, so that, it kind of mentions it, but without me having to like sit there and make every other video that I'm doing being about ancient aliens. Just getting threats from these people being like, oh, we're gonna come hurt your city if you don't give us a bunch of money. Yeah, that's not a way to convince me to do what you want. Just to threaten me. I don't know if that really works for anybody else. All right, JT, I am going to contact you tomorrow. So yes, my apologies once again for taking so long to do that. Yeah. So yeah, I have worked like professionally, not I've not done courses on it, but in an old job that I used to do, part of my job involved a lot of search engine optimization for a website. And that's where, and obviously I also sometimes do like my own research on like, how can I improve my channel and how can I gain more followers without having to buy people, because that's not sustainable and not genuine, and it's not really going to help you out in the long run. Also, gods are... Okay, Ra's my patron god, so I can't piss him off. So I do, yeah, like, it's kind of interesting about how you maybe don't think about it, but definitely, like, a lot of the stuff that I do in the ways that I specifically do it on my channel is very calculated. It might not seem like it sometimes, but yeah, that is kind of, I do try to like think about my content and what I want it to accomplish for me. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense for people. I mean, like, choosing also like, so for example, my video that I did that was quote unquote that was discoveries that rewrote history, which has done that I put out 2 weeks ago. That was my last upload. Again, it's not pseudo stuff, but discoveries and this idea that archaeologists don't want to rewrite history are like two kind of these fringe pseudo archaeological opinions that generate a lot of interest and like the keywords and stuff like that. So that is why I basically did a video on that, and I named it that way. Also, there's a lot of videos out there that I had noticed that are like, this is the top discoveries of 2023, which I did last year. And so I wanted to try and come up with a more original video concept, because I didn't want to just be copying basically everyone else and whatever they're doing. That's kind of the hard thing, is I want to, it's like, it's not like, you know, I don't want to do what other people are doing, and like, you know, originality isn't really a thing. You know, there's always somebody who's probably done it before you or better than you, but I'm going on a bit of a rant now, I'm sorry. Yeah, I've also noticed obviously that so I started doing archaeology news a year ago, and because I thought that would again be a type of video that I could make that resonated with my audience and you know, was interesting for people beyond the people already subscribed to me, and it's done really well. I've now noticed that there are some bigger YouTubers than me that have started doing like discovery live streams, which is obviously different to what I do. They're much longer. They're not as, I wouldn't say research, because they probably read the articles in depth while they're on the live stream versus what I do, which is where I give kind of like like a bit of a summary of the discovery itself, and then if you guys want to know more about it, you can. But yeah, definitely that kind of stuff I think is becoming more popular. So probably going to see a little bit more of that coming from me. Anyway, we're way behind on our segments and we have a half hour left of the stream today. So I'm going to move on to the next segment and mute myself. Feel free to put any questions you have in the comments.
The 11th dynasty ruled from circa 2150 to 1991 BCE and is a well-attested group of rulers. Its earlier members before King Mentuhotep are grouped with the 4 preceding dynasties to form the first intermediate period, as we've already said. They ruled from Waset in Upper Egypt. The relative chronology of the 11th dynasty is well established by contemporary records. Manetho writes that Dynasty 11 consisted of 16 kings who reigned for 43 years, but this is contradicted by contemporary inscriptions and the Turin king list, whose combined testimony establishes that this dynasty consisted of 7 kings who ruled for a total of 143 years. This dynasty traces its origins to a nomarch of Waset called Intef the Great, son of Iku, who is mentioned in a number of contemporary inscriptions. This is undoubtedly the family referenced in the mission briefing as Inyotef. Intef would have controlled the territory from Waset to Aswan to the south and not much further north than Koptos, which was then controlled by another dynasty of nomarchs. Intef never claimed the title of king, and his immediate successor, Mentuhotep I, is considered the first king of this dynasty. An inscription carved during the reign of Intef II shows that he was the first of this dynasty to claim to rule over the whole of Egypt, which is something that brought his kingdom into conflict with the rulers of the northern Heracleopolitan city that's also known as Henen-Sao, the 10th dynasty. The Intef undertook several campaigns northward and captured the important nome of Abydos. Warfare continued intermittently until the 14th regnal year of Mentuhotep II, when the northern kings were defeated and this dynasty could begin to consolidate their rule. The rulers of Dynasty 11 then reasserted Egypt's influence over her neighbors in Africa and the Near East. The reign of its last king, and thus the end of this dynasty, is something of a mystery. Contemporary records refer to 7 empty years following the death of Mentuhotep III, which correspond to the reign of Mentuhotep IV. Modern scholars identify his vizier Amenemhat with Amenemhat I, the first king of Dynasty 12, as a part of a theory that Amenemhat became king as part of a palace coup. The only certain details of Mentuhotep IV's reign was that 2 remarkable omens were witnessed at the quarry of Wadi Hamamat by the vizier Amenemhat. The city of Waset is more popularly known by its Greek name of Thebes. Waset translates as City of the Scepter, a reference to the scepter of the pharaohs, a long staff with an animal's head and a forked base. The ruins of the city lie within the modern Egyptian city of Luxor. Waset was the main city of the 4th Upper Egyptian nome and was the capital of Egypt for long periods during the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom eras. It was a religious center and the most venerated city during many periods of ancient Egyptian history. The site includes areas along both the eastern bank of the Nile, where the temples of Karnak and Luxor stand and where the city was situated, and the western bank, where a necropolis of large private and royal cemeteries and funerary complexes can be found. It was built largely on the alluvial plains of the Nile Valley, which follows a great bend in the Nile, and the city itself was laid in a northeast to southwest axis parallel to the contemporary river channel. It was home to tens of thousands of people, and at one point was probably the largest city in the world. More than 60 annual festivals were celebrated here, including the beautiful Feast of Opet, the Kowiak Festival, Festival of First Shemu, Festival of Second Shemu, and beautiful Festival of the Valley. Waset was inhabited from around 3200 BCE. At this time, it was a small trading post, while Mennefer then went on to serve as the royal residence of the Old Kingdom kings. Although no buildings survive in Waset that are older than the Middle Kingdom portions of the Karnak temple complex, the lower part of a statue of King Nusra of the 5th dynasty has been found at Karnak. Since rulers of the 4th to 6th dynasties appear on the Karnak king list, it's thought that there was a temple in the area that dates to the Old Kingdom. As we've covered already, the rulers of the 11th dynasty descended from a nomarch of Waset. When Mentuhotep II conquered the northern kingdom and the Middle Kingdom period began, Waset became the new capital for a short time. Waset was already a town of considerable size by this time. Excavations around the Karnak temple show that the Middle Kingdom town had a layout with a grid pattern. The city was at least 1 kilometer long and 50 hectares in area. Remains of 2 palatial buildings were also found. During the 12th dynasty, Amenemhat I moved the seat of power north to Ichtawi. Waset continued to thrive as a religious center as the local god Amun was becoming increasingly prominent. The oldest remains of a temple dedicated to Amun date to the reign of Senusret I. During the New Kingdom under Ahmose I, Waset became Egypt's capital again. It also became the center for a newly established professional civil service, for there was a greater demand for scribes and the literate as the royal archives began to fill with accounts and reports. During the 19th dynasty, the seat of government moved to the Delta. Waset remained its revenues and prestige through the reigns of Seti I and Ramses I, who still resided in Waset for part of every year. The city continued to be well kept in the early 20th dynasty, but under the later Ramessid kings, Waset began to decline as the government fell into grave economic difficulties. During the reign of Ramses IX, which was around 1114 BCE, a series of investigations into the plundering of royal tombs in the necropolis of western Waset uncovered proof of corruption. The plundered royal mummies were moved from place to place and at last deposited by the priests of Amun in a tomb shaft at Dir el-Bahri and in the tomb of Amenhotep II. The discovery of these two hiding places in 1881 and 1889, respectively, was one of the great events of modern archaeological discovery. Control of local affairs tended to come more and more into the hands of the high priests of Amun, so that during the Third Intermediate Period, the high priest of Amun exerted absolute power over the south. By around 750 BCE, the Kushites were growing in their influence over Waset and Upper Egypt. In 721, King Shabaka of the Kushites reunified Egypt yet again. His reign saw a significant amount of building work undertaken throughout Egypt, especially at Waset, which he made the capital of his kingdom. In Karnak, he erected a pink granite statue of himself wearing the pshent, the double crown of Egypt. King Taharka accomplished many notable projects at Waset and Nubia before the Assyrians started to wage war against Egypt. In 667 BCE, the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal invaded Egypt, and King Taharka abandoned Lower Egypt and fled to Waset. After his death, his successor seized Waset, invaded Lower Egypt, and laid siege to Mennefer, but abandoned his attempts to conquer the country in 663 and retreated southwards. The Assyrians pursued him and took Waset, whose name was added to a long list of cities plundered and destroyed by the Assyrians. After this, Waset never regained its former political significance, although it remained an important religious center. The good relationship of Waset with the Central Powers in the north ended when the native Egyptian pharaohs were replaced by the Greeks, starting with Alexander the Great. He visited Waset during a celebration of the Opet festival. In spite of his welcoming visit, Waset then became a center for dissent. During the Roman period, the remaining communities clustered around the pylon of the Luxor temple. Waset became part of a Roman province, and a Roman legion was headquartered in Luxor temple at the time of Roman campaigns into Nubia. Building didn't come to an abrupt stop, but the city continued to decline. In the 1st century CE, Strabo described Waset as having been relegated to a mere village. Interestingly, in popular culture, Waset, or Thebes as it's known, is a setting in the 1999 film The Mummy and its sequel, The Mummy Returns, where it is called the Land of the Living. In real history, there was no such name given to it. The films feature scenes taking place in ancient Egypt during its prime, set in Waset, which affect the story in the modern setting 3,000 years later. Our last segment for today will cover the god Amun, who is not featured in the game. Amun and his wife Amunet are mentioned in the Old Kingdom pyramid texts. The name Amun meant something like the hidden one or invisible one. He was a major god who rose to the position of patron deity of Waset by replacing Montu during the 11th dynasty. After the rebellion of Waset against the Hyksos and the start of the New Kingdom, the pharaohs of the new dynasty attributed their successes to Amun and lavished much of their wealth and captured spoils on the construction of temples dedicated to him. The victory against the foreign rulers achieved by pharaohs who worshipped Amun caused him to be seen as a champion of the less fortunate, upholding the rights of justice for the poor. By aiding those who traveled in his name, he became the protector of the road. Since he upheld Ma'at, which roughly translates to truth, justice, and goodness, those who prayed to Amun were required to first demonstrate that they were worthy by confessing their sins. As the cult of Amun grew in importance, he became identified with the chief deity worshipped in other areas during other periods, namely the sun god Ra. This identification led to another merger of identities, with Amun becoming known as Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra retained chief importance in the Egyptian pantheon throughout the New Kingdom, with the exception of the Atenist heresy under Akhenaten. Amun-Ra in this period held the position of transcendental, self-created creator deity and was the champion of the poor or troubled and central to personal piety. Along with Osiris, Amun-Ra is the most widely recorded of the Egyptian gods. He is most recognizable in his form of a human man wearing a double feather crown, but he can also be depicted as either wearing ram's horns, as a ram itself, or in the falcon-headed form of Ra. The history of Amun as the patron god of Waset begins in 2000 BCE, with the construction of the precinct of Amun-Ra at the Karnak temple complex under Senusret I. Major construction work in the precinct of Amun-Ra also took place during the 18th dynasty, when Waset became the new capital of a unified new kingdom. Construction of Karnak's famous hypostyle hall may have also begun during the 18th dynasty, although most building was undertaken under Seti I and Ramses II. The last major change to the precinct of Amun-Ra's layout was the addition of the first pylon and the massive enclosure walls that surrounded the whole precinct, both constructed by Nectanebo I. Around 1000 BCE, the overwhelming dominance of Amun over all of Egypt gradually began to decline. In Waset, however, his worship continued unabated, especially under the Nubian 25th dynasty, as Amun was now seen as a national god in Nubia. As the chief deity of the Egyptian empire, Amun-Ra also became to be worshipped outside of Egypt. As Zeus Ammon and Jupiter Ammon, he came to be identified with Zeus in Greece and Jupiter in Rome. As we've said before, when we talked about the god Ra, the end of any worship of Amun-Ra happened with the advent of Christianity becoming the dominant religion in the Roman Empire.
Okay, so I said one segment, but that's the rest of the segments for today because I had to look at the time and I was like, oh no, I need to finish this off. So yeah, so that we just covered there is Waset. It's the 11th dynasty, Waset itself, and then Amun and Amun-Ra, the god, the main guy for much of the New Kingdom. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Matt, I'd love to know what we actually learned from certain discoveries. Yeah, I actually, Matt, what you're saying, I totally get it. That's something that I try to weave into my archaeology news videos so I always try, but I'm not always successful. Because sometimes, a discovery doesn't like really change something, but I always do try to point out when it's like, well, this discovery shapes what part of our knowledge about this, that kind of stuff. So I do make an effort to try and point out, like, why is this discovery important, and therefore why am I including it? I will say as well that the archaeology news video for this month doesn't have as many discoveries as I would have liked, but that was because I had my interview with the guy from the Ecuadorian Amazon, Dr. Stefan Rostein or Stephen Rostein. That's like a 10-minute interview, and then I also have a special guest, Will, who was on my channel for Ask an Archaeologist a while ago. He sent me a video of stuff that he's doing in Peru, or well, he's talking about stuff that he's doing in Peru, and that's another like 5 minutes. And I don't like to put my videos over 30 minutes. To be honest, I don't like to put them over 20 minutes because you just don't have people's attention for that long anymore. So I had to cut something out somewhere, and what I ended up cutting out was a few more discoveries. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that oh, Ra's not happy. You know what I need to do? I need to have a flippin' festival. Alright, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to do a festival square, and at the end of this, okay, this is gonna have to go through here, with a roadblock basically here and here and here, and then we'll do our temple complex to Ra. Ha 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 ha. Yes, I can put this. I am on cleared land. It's because there's people in the way. Stop getting in the way, people. There we go. So Ra better be happy about this. Architect's post. Because yeah, if you delay, this is one thing that I found, is that if you delay the building of your temple complex too long, then the gods get really mad. And once you build the temple complex, suddenly they're just like happy for you all the time. Right. Export. I can't believe I didn't realize I could export copper. Again, just shows how my brain is just not quite working at the moment. I think it's much more interesting to see and hear about our, yeah, I think that is really interesting. Like, and I think that's something, again, that archaeologists haven't been very good at communicating, that, you know, these things do change. I think that's partially because things change really slowly. So, you know, it's not like we find something and then, like, even, so this garden cities thing with Dr. Rostein, for example, it's great, and it has the implication that it's going to, like, really change our ideas of what peoples in the Amazon were doing pre-conquest, and the kind of things that they were building, and because a really interesting thing that he said was how we just assume that the indigenous people of the Amazon have existed as they have always done, and nothing has changed. So because they hunt gather in the Amazon, that's how they've been for all of time. And this city has the potential to really change your idea of that and what happened there. So, but obviously, this is the first instance of this happening. You now have to go through a whole period where I'm sure there's people that are going to be peer reviewing the information. There's going to be more research being done. There's going to be people, now looking for more of this stuff using the LiDAR, I'm sure. And that he has further research on this site and everything to publish. So it's not going to overnight change things. And I think that's the thing that people tend to struggle with is, they want things to be determined. They want things to be done now. And that's the thing that a lot of the pseudo-archaeology capitalizes on, is the fact that, this guy, Dr. Rostein, has found these Amazonian sites, but that doesn't mean necessarily that it's immediately going to change our entire paradigm and thinking of what happened and what things were like in this area. That is something that's just going to take time. And people don't seem to understand that is actually just part of the academic process. That's not us necessarily. That's not to say that archaeologists can't sometimes, impede these things, because we're still people. We still have opinions. There are people who disagree. There are people who don't want these things to be true, and there are people who will maybe not stonewall it, but who will doubt it. We're not perfect. Another thing that I think the public struggles with is that we're not perfect. We're all not we don't all agree on one single thing. We're not one body. We don't represent everybody else. So, sorry, again, going on a bit of a rant. But yeah, but things do change. They maybe take some time to change, but they do change. And our knowledge of people is constantly evolving, especially with all the new different technologies that we're doing. Geophysical survey is huge, and the potential of it is huge, because it means that we're no longer reliant on having to destroy something in order to learn about it, because archaeology is destructive. It means that we can now have a way of looking at things non-invasively, and but obviously that means we have to now find new ways of interpreting the data and looking at it. So yeah, that's my rant for today. Welcome to my TED Talk on how archaeology is modern and people just like to ignore it. I gotta make sure that okay, can't accept weapons there. Okay, well, I gotta stockpile them now. And I'll do another weaponsmith. And we're about 10 minutes off from our video premiere, the end of the stream today. Let's see how far off we are from our mission goals. Halfway population. Okay, so far off, I think. Monument, not very far. Prosperity, fine. Culture, mortuary, not worried about that yet. Kingdom rating. That will come with time. How are we in sandstone? 130. I like to just do this in phases, because if I try and import them all at once, I'm just going to make myself go bankrupt, basically. I wonder if I'll maybe I'll put some more storage yards in, and then I'm going to import some gems and start making some luxury goods, because then I can A, use them for my needs, and B, sell them for profit. I can't believe I didn't realize that I can have copper mines. How are disagreements on findings settled if they are evil settled in archaeology? If two groups or people disagree what certain new findings mean, it just means that you have to do more research, or you have to do something more conclusive. So, for example, in the rewrites video, I talked about these footprints that they found in, I think it's White Sands Park in Arizona. The U.S. geography states wise is not great, but basically they found these footprints in a national park, and they were saying that these like predate by like thousands of years what the like the accepted date for when humans were present in the Americas via, you know, the land bridges. And when this was first published a few years ago, they were the conclusion of a lot of the academic community, from my recollection, so this might not be exactly right, was that the dating methods that they did weren't good enough / robust enough, and didn't prove this conclusively. So there was still a lot of doubt about, you know, if this is going to be such a big change, you know, you really need to back it up with some really concrete proof. And the hard thing with dating stuff that far back is that you can't really use, you can use thing, you can only go back so far. So the one thing that they tend to use instead is bioluminescence dating, which measures when something was last exposed to sunlight. So anyway, these people that found these footprints, the other thing too is like you can't actually date the footprints. They have to date basically the soil and the things around it to then infer. So you would date what you found below it and what you found above it, and then you know that that thing kind of like sits in the middle somewhere. So the radiocarbon dating would have been was done on like tree pollen, because you also can't radiocarbon date sand. You can't radiocarbon date soil. You have to carbon date like a carbon consuming object. I'm probably explaining this really badly, but so yeah, they couldn't date the actual footprint itself. They had to date some pollen, and then they were doing the bioluminescence dating on the soil as well around it. So to continue with trying to prove this theory, they went back, they sent the samples with the radiocarbon stuff to a different lab. So then you're thinking, you know, it's a different lab. If they come up with the same thing, clearly it's not like a collusion between somebody who's trying to fudge some results. And then they retested the soils with the bioluminescence dating, and it basically came back concurring with the initial result. So now kind of what's going to happen next is the other problem is that because and I'm using arbitrary numbers here because I don't know them off the top of my head. So say the accepted date for humans being in the Americas is like 15,000 years ago, and these footprints bring it up to 20 to 25,000 years ago. Because 15,000 years was the like kind of accepted date, people haven't been looking for sites that necessarily would go past that. And and you know, how do you differentiate between those types of sites? It's not my area of expertise, but basically now that it seems like these results do prove that our presence in the Americas goes farther back than we initially realized, now they're saying, okay, well, we actually have to go and start looking for more sites that corroborate this. So that's kind of the next step in the process. You can't rely on like one event. You have to have, you know, multiple things to support the proof. So yes, that's kind of the next step. And obviously that's where it gets difficult, because it's not on the original archaeologist himself to go out and do that research. That's on other archaeologists. And so they need to be interested in doing that. They need to have the funding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not easy, but the ball rolls very slowly, but it does roll. I hope that has explained the process a little bit better for people. Let me know if it's still incredibly confusing. We're 5 minutes out from the end of the stream, so we're not going to get most of the way through this level today. Sorry, that's partially because I took 15 minutes at the beginning to insist on playing you a clip, a cut scene that I missed, but I'm sure it's fine. Oh, and look, our pyramid's done, so that's good. I like that. That's nice. And one of the previous missions, like, was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. We talked about the other monument that we have for this level, which is sun temples and their significance to ancient Egypt and why they started building them, which is, I also think, quite cool. So if you want to, you should also check that out. Yeah, different sea levels and ice ages. So yeah, people haven't been looking in those areas for those kinds of sites. So now they will hopefully start doing that, and yeah, should change things. But as I said in my video, this is why textbooks need to be rewritten, because these things change all the time. I don't know how I used to really struggle with playing this game, and there are some parts of it that are harder than others, but I feel like since I started replaying it for the stream, it's gotten a lot easier than it used to be to play. I know that I don't play it nearly as well as, you know, the people who probably play this professionally. There are people who do streams of Pharaoh that have like thousands of people watching them. I maybe have a few hundred, but that's fine. All right, we're just before the premiere, so I'm gonna start wrapping things up. So yes, that's it for today. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the stream, had a good chat. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for chatting in the chat, asking me some good questions today. I hope that I've answered your questions to the best of my ability, and that you will join me next time I do a stream. I might have to pause doing a stream before every video premiere for the next month or two, just again because I'm really busy and researching for these takes me a not insignificant amount of time, so I need to claw my time back from somewhere, and I think that's the easiest way to do it. But that doesn't mean that I'm stopping doing them for everything. I'm at least going to be doing them in front of my archaeology news videos. So anyway, if I haven't said it already, thank you so much for coming. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to give this video a like, do a comment, do anything to engage with it, to tell the algorithm that you're interested in this content and that I should keep making more of it. I hope to see you guys over in the premiere in a few seconds. I will be in the live chat there talking to you guys. Archaeology news is a little bit longer today. It's about 30, just under 30-ish minutes, I think. So, you know, grab a drink and settle in. I think I've got some really interesting stuff for you guys to watch tonight. So I hope you enjoy it, watching it as much as I enjoy making it. So yeah, thanks so much for coming out tonight. It's been great speaking to you all as always, and I hope that you all have an excellent weekend. All right, bye.